January the 2nd, 2026. You have to get used to that. Good morning. Welcome to the Morning Brief. I'm Kayode Okikilu.
Well, it's the second day of the year, a last day of the week, but not the least, of course, in many things to come. We hope it will be just the beginning of great days ahead for 2026. Welcome once again to your perfect morning starter on Channels Television. I am Bukola Koka.
So there's a big debate. What day is the last day of the week? What day is the first day of the week? Some say Sunday is the first day of the week. For some other people, Monday is the first day of the week. But whatever the case is, just make your days count. And I must say that I'm loving 2026 already.
Already, right?
It rained yesterday. Very unusual, but hey, we love it like that. Sometimes the rain is better than Hamatan, right? So it rained yesterday, and guess what? It is already drizzling this morning, back to back. So I'm loving 2026 already. I really hope that it's going to be a really fruitful year for us as a nation. So 2026, bring on all of the goodness, please, as you've done on the first and second day. We want a consistent, yielding of goodness. Don't you love 2026?
Oh, yeah. It is remarkable that there was that early morning rain that ushered in 2026 from the night of December the 31st, 2025. At least on my side, I noted that. But
so
for
it rained.
2026,
It
yes,
rained.
indeed.
Oh, interesting. Mine was much later in the day. So, okay, I think it was sharing it after I finished.
By the way, it's the last working day of the week, not the last day of the week. So, beautiful. We hope that it ushers in a lot of good things to come. As Mr. President has himself noted, that 2026 will herald a year of sustained economic growth, especially following the positive economic indicators that he also highlighted in his speech. But speaking of what 2026 holds and the good things that are to come, by the way, the Senate President has decided to drop all defamation suits against perceived political opponents. And that came through after the Senate President said he listened to a New Year sermon and he felt, look, that was directed at me, that spoke to me, and he had about 11, is that the number that he quoted?
Actually.
9 defamation suits. And don't forget that, one of those suits, or one out of many of those suits, is against the senator representing Kogi Central Senatorial District. But let's hear the Senate President, and then we'll be back.
We can tell you that that's not the Senate President, clearly. But we'll get that through to you. But here's what happened. The Senate President was speaking at the Sacred Heart Parish in Uyo yesterday. And yes, as Bukola said, there was a homily. And the Senate President came up and said, it was targeted at me. I feel that, that message was for me, not targeted now, so it doesn't sound, so it's not put in the wrong context. And he says, what, I'm just going to withdraw everything. And what did the priest say in his homily? It's very important to also contextualize that. Well, he said that the greatest thing that man needs is peace. And he admonished the parishioners, one of whom, of course, is a Senate President, to live in peace with one another. In his words, you have to let go of the past, no matter what it was. All of us carry some luggage of pain and hurt. You have to let go if you want to move on. That's part of what the priest said, and I think it just tugged at the heart of the president of Nigeria's Senate. And he said, you know what, let's withdraw all of those suits. We wonder if, on the other side, the case will be, will I say withdrawn, or at least it will be forgotten. So we wait to see. But that's what we have of a Senate president. You get to listen to him. All right. But Bukola?
Yeah. A very great way to go, a very great way to begin 2026, and we call on all politicians as well to emulate Mr. Senate President and, toe the path of peace. and this is especially instructive as we approach the 2027 general elections. You know, we've been described as a very litigious kind of people, taking up cases in court against perceived political enemies, especially if you study the political space. During the last presidential elections, in fact, the general elections, INEC posted about 1,000 post-election litigation cases in court. And so we hope that many more sermons like this will come through right ahead of the 2027 presidential elections, such that Nigerian politicians will prefer the path of peace and drop all litigations, choose not to approach the courts to determine, decisively the outcome of elections, and accept the elections, the outcomes of elections as they are, following the example of former President Goodluck Jonathan. Kadi, don't you think that that way would, have accelerated development and stability, in our state assemblies, in our National Assembly, in the upper chamber and in the lower chamber, and indeed, at the subnational level? Kadi.
Brilliant question, Bukola. So let's take a listen to the Senate President, and I'll give you my answer from the depth of my heart, okay? So here's the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio.
And because of what you said here, I had almost 9 cases in court against some individuals, against people who defame me. And because of what you said here, I had almost 9 cases in court against some individuals, against people who defame me, who lied against me, who slandered my name and all. But listening to the priest, I suddenly realized he was talking to me. So I hereby direct my solicitors to withdraw all lawsuits against me.
So the words of Nigeria's Senate President there. But, election petition, one thing, right? It's usually a thing of sometimes just emotions, right? The person that loses most times believes that the process was rigged against them, so they just go to court because they don't want to take it. So I understand if we're trying to reduce election petition and just allow the winner be the winner for cases that are clear-cut, right? If you believe that you were cheated, absolutely go to court. But this case with the Senate President, and if we're picking the one with Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduah, is quite different. And I think we must find out what the truth is, really. As much as, yes, the Senate President is moved by that sermon, that homily, and he just wants to be at peace with everyone. But where's the place of the truth, really? Because Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduah actually alleged allegations were quite weighty and heavy, right? So as much as we want to be at peace, we also want to know what the truth is. Is she lying? Was it a lie? Yes or no? Was the Senate President culpable? Yes or no? We need to know what the truth is. But if he's saying that he's going to withdraw the suit, we don't know if Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduah will also withdraw her own case. But one thing is certain, we must know what the truth is. Nigerians deserve to know the truth in that case. I mean, you can't put us through all of that trauma as a nation. I mean, do you know what that drama did nationally, from when it started, from that whole back and forth on the floor, when he went to court, the petitions, the protests, and everybody picked a side. Some other people were saying, you know what, the Senate President should resign. Or no, Senator Natasha Akpoti-Oduah is a terrible person. Yes, let's be at peace with each other, but let's also know what the truth is. That's my answer, Bukola.
Well, a very, very ideal answer, that addresses the question and the many implications to the question. But Kadi, if we recall the conversation that we had with our guest yesterday, Mr. Wale Fatadi, who spoke extensively on the lessons that we should be gleaning from that event that marked 2025, then it would be not to be emotional, to be guarded, and not to take, the conduct sometimes of politicians with a pack of salt, but rather with a pinch of salt. Because following that event, we've seen the senator representing Kogi Central herself invite the Senate president to an event that she'd organized for her constituents back in her home state. And so would we be surprised subsequently if we found them in the same space? There have been perceived political enemies from the time past that we have thought that if we saw them in the same space subsequently, that then there must have, have been something significant that has happened. And we can, cite a number. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, for instance, and the current president. We recall what happened back then when the current president was the governor of Lagos State, following the withholding of local government allocations to Lagos State after the creation of local council development areas. We can even cite, the relationship with the current president and, former Vice President Atiku Abubakar, which for a long time had been frosty. But ahead of the 2023 elections, there was a significant event when both individuals, long-time, some would say even long-time associates, were found in the same space. And so more often than not, one should just study the political space and move with caution and experientially with evidence, regarding what politicians tell us and what they do, tying them both together before we make up our minds on where we should stand. And that is the significant lesson from, the sexual harassment allegations by the senator representing Kogi Central against the leader of the Senate, Senator Godswill Akpabio. Will the truth eventually come out one day? One day, maybe we should just, flow with the space and hope that there'll be healing indeed between the leadership of the Senate now, not just the Senate president and the senator representing Kogi Central. And we hope it will also augur well for female representation in the National Assembly.
Absolutely. Some weighty allegations, sexual harassment. She said that she had evidence, concrete evidence. So we need to find out the truth. But that's not all. As we, of course, watch the space, as has been said, for the truth, let's just give you this on the side. Two things were meant to take effect, these two major things were meant to take effect in Nigeria from January the 1st. First is the new tax laws, which we'll tell you about on the front pages in a moment. That has taken effect. In fact, we have the NRS now, replacing the FIRS with effect from yesterday. The second one is the tinted glass permit. The police said they were going to start reinforcing it on January the 1st, which was yesterday. But we must tell you right now that the Nigeria Police Force has announced that, well, they're going to pause the enforcement of the tinted glass permit yet again. So that is the position of the Nigeria Police Force, and they're quoting an interim order of the court issued on December the 17th, restraining the force from proceeding with the enforcement of the tinted glass permit policy pending the hearing and the termination of the substantive suit or the vacation of the order. So it is official now. The police is yet again pausing the enforcement of the tinted glass permit. So for now, and for the foreseeable future, until that case is done with, the police should not be enforcing the tinted glass permit. This is for road users. This is something that you can show the policemen if they just bring it up, that, well, this is from your Oga. The statement was signed by CSP Benjamin Huntain on behalf of the IGP. So that is the situation of the tinted glass permit, for your information.
Indeed, and the last time the police announced the suspension was in October, following public complaints about it and, the determination of the suit. And, of course, not forgetting the NBA's intervention as well in that one, citing, allegations of fraud and scam that, the bunnies would be paid into a private account and there would be no accountability in that space. But prior to that time, there have been suits, not just in 2025, initiated by public-spirited individuals against the implementation of the tinted glass permit policy. And so let's see, going forward, the implications of this and how the court would decide on the matter. But
There you go.
Yeah.
So we're going to switch gears now and show you how the dailies are reporting all of the big stories today. It's the second day in the year 2026, in the month of January. So what are the big stories? I know a lot of people are not back at work yet. It's okay. I know you're waiting till Monday, right? But we're here to show you what is going on. So stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, and so what do we have for you on the front pages? First off, let's tell you that we have Mr. Dayo Akintobi joining us on the program. Very first time in 2026. Mr. Akintobi is a public affairs analyst. Happy New Year to you, Mr. Akintobi.
A very happy New Year to you and happy New Year to all Nigerians. May 2026 be an amazing year for each and every one of us. Much better than 2025 and previous years.
Amen. Amen to that, Mr. Akintobi. So let's get right into it. We're starting off with this Nigerian newspaper that leads with the tax laws. So after weeks of debate, controversy, the National Assembly eventually released a statement. And this is how this Nigeria captures it. National Assembly orders release of assented tax bills to end dispute. Says decision informed by sustained public debate, mounting calls for transparency in lawmaking process. As I said, this, what I call it, the revelation by the lawmaker came weeks ago. But the Senate or the National Assembly as a whole has now decided to say, you know what, let's release the official documents on the first, I mean, they said on or before 1st of January or afterwards. That's when Nigerians should be able to access it. Mr. Akintobi, do you think this helps the matter? Not to forget that the House of Reps had said they were going to investigate it. The president said, well, whatever issues there were are not substantial enough. But in any case, the law is being implemented already.
Exactly. The president said he was going ahead January 1, regardless of whatever issues were still in contention. And well, since the issue emanated, the controversy emanated from the House to begin with, we had assumed that there would be a robust investigation. Well, the issue all went around what was gazetted, what was the harmonized bill that was released by the National Assembly. Well, where the controversy emanated from is now saying that, well, we've re-gazetted the thing and what is out there now is what is correct, so let's put the matter to bed. Well, we don't know if there was a nod and wink in the middle of the night between the two contending parties, but what we know is that for now, controversy is put to bed. New tax law is implemented and we all need to begin to abide by it. It's interesting to note that some of the dailies today on the front page have advertisements introducing us to this new National Revenue Service, their new logo, their new name. So it's a done deal, really. And if it were a clerical error, an editing issue, or a direct subversion of the intent of the National Assembly, the National Assembly is not willing to take it up. They've decided to let it go, and so here we are with the new tax law. I think the main issue with the tax law has still been clarification, communication, and an issue of distrust of government. Up to now, many people are still of the assumption that debits will start flying out of their accounts as soon as X number of naira goes into their account, probably beyond what they earn. So there's still no clarity. There's a lot of fear. But I heard one person on an interview yesterday with Jeff, a tax expert, saying that let's wait till January 31. Let's wait till the first paychecks come out and let us see if we have more in our take-home pay. Those of us who are on a lower pay scale, I guess ₦1 million a month, a year, and less. Something about 100,000, maybe the minimum wage, 90,000 a year and below. Let's wait and see, because if truthfully there's tax relief for those at the lower end of the economic ladder, then there should be more in our paychecks at the end of the month. So let's suspend judgment. Let's wait and see. I mean, there are so many aspects to the new tax law, but Mr. Oyedele and his committee are trying to sell it as it actually doesn't create added burdens for any Nigerian or any Nigerian business. It actually brings relief. Let's wait and see. Since National Assembly has thrown us under the bus now and said, go ahead and live with it, whatever discrepancies we noticed are not enough to stop it from going through. So we have to live with it, and let's just wait and see.
Well, Mr. Akintobi, did you say some of us? I was hearing you saying some of us, some of us. Are you trying to identify with us on this one?
Listen to Kayode. You know that those journalists are poor now. We are not well.
I kept hearing some of us, Mr. Akintobi. You know. But indeed, sharing the 31st,
what we do is a public service.
Absolutely.
We don't get remunerated very well.
Well, there you go. So, Mr. Akintobi, we'll take this with a pinch of salt. We'll take it with a pinch of salt. But there's a story on the front page which we talked about, and in fact showed the video. Akpabio bows to sermon, ends legal hostilities. All suits against Natasha, others withdrawn after homily. Page 5 reads, and you know, a lot of people are reacting to that. But what do you make of it, Mr. Akintobi?
I want to take a different angle. I want to look at it from a different angle from the one that you did. And I want to say that if homilies from the pulpit have that kind of effect on the Senate president, I wish it would have that kind of effect on many more Nigerians. If you consider how pious and religious a people we are, and you compare it to the dysfunction in the country, if our clergymen could preach and it actually gets to us in such a way as to make us change or deviate from the kind of behavior that could divide us or be contentious and toe the path of peace, it means that religion is having a positive impact, which up to today we can't really say that. In spite of how religious a country we are, we're not really seeing the impact of religion. So if my pastor in a sermon says something that moves me and touches the humanity in me to the point that I want to drop all manner of contention with my quote-unquote enemies or with my detractors, I think it's a good step that many of us should try and emulate from the Senate president. Put the politics of it aside. Yes, I agree there should be a search for the truth. Senator Natasha and the others on the other side of the spectrum could decide to continue, especially if Senator Natasha feels like her name has been solid and she needs to clear the air around what actually happened and she wants her side to be heard, she can still pursue the case so that at the end of the day the public gets to know the truth. But I like the fact that somebody as public and as prominent as the Senate president can listen to just a sermon and take an action that has an impact on societal well-being. I think if more of us are able to be that moved by religious persuasion to be able to step away from things that create chaos, disunity, I think it's a good thing overall.
You know what, Mr. Akintobi, I'm going to be queuing behind you on this one, as I already expressed similar sentiment. I'm looking forward to seeing religion having an impact on our elections, and maybe we'll be seeing less of the Ghana must goes, less of inducement of delegates after such homilies have been preached. But let's move to the Guardian newspaper, which sort of trails on the president's speech, I believe, a year to test policies, shape politics, and measure performance. And the president was quite, enthusiastic about the positive economic indicators posted by his administration in the year 2025, quoting inflation, the reserves, foreign reserves, the balance of trade, and he's projecting growth in 2026. Are you as optimistic?
Those numbers look good in theory, but I'm more of a practical person. I'm a hands-on on the street type of person. My job as a community spokesperson or a community town crier. It requires me to interact with ordinary people every day, and their tales don't tally with what the statistics are saying. You know, statistics can be interpreted any which way. So yeah, what does GDP mean to the rustic farmer in Kafanchan or to the vulcanizer in Ikmetu Modu? Those things have no meaning, and the people I interact with say their lives are not better today than it was pre-June 2023. So reforms are good. Reforms are one thing, but until they begin to translate into meaningful value to the ordinary people that you are targeting the reforms at, then it makes nonsense of the whole idea. So yeah, the president's speech was full of the normal accolades and report giving and optimism and beating his chest about what his administration has achieved. But those achievements can only be measured in the gains that are attributed to ordinary Nigerians, and as far as I can see, the money in their pockets is still not adequate for their survival. Unemployment is still rife. Inflation, they say the numbers of inflation is going down, but the people I'm talking to say things are still expensive in the market. So how do you reconcile the two if inflation is reducing but things are still expensive in the market? So the other thing that bothered me a bit was, as laudatory as this speech was, the fact that the president delivered it from the president is not in the country at the time when he's talking to us makes me it doesn't really make the speech as resonant to me as if he were there at Aso Rock and talking directly to us. We know he's away and he's telling us these fancy things to usher in the new year at a time when he doesn't consider it fit for him to be here among us. And we were not told where he went before he goes to Abu Dhabi or why he went. So I'm not of the opinion that it's an emergency situation that couldn't have waited, So I would have liked it much better if he delivered the speech face to face, in person, talking from his heart to us, as opposed to, I think it must have been pre-recorded before he left. I don't think he delivered it virtually, I'm not sure. But I don't think it carries as much weight or is somewhat diminished in my view based on the fact that he's not here. But the bottom line, of course, is he said all the right things. Depending on what side of the fence you sit on is how you're going to assess the performance of his government so far. But what we do know is that every Nigerian prays for a better 2026 than 2025, 2024, and previous years.
But it looks like the president is working hard to consolidate his position. If, the defections we're seeing are anything to go by, so we may just be seeing, well, I'm not one, I'd rather, be silent and rest on that one. But take a look at this story yet again on the front page of The Guardian by the right-hand corner, which will give you an insight into what I've decided to be silent on. Mutwang's exit leaves PDP with 4 governors as Bala fingers Wike in party problem. It's a page 3 read. And speaking of the Bauchi governor, we did hear him some days ago during the budget presentation talk tough on some issues bordering on allegations against him and vowing that, it will be contended. So what does this portend really for 2027 as we see continually a decimation of the main opposition, PDP, and, a very huge measure of doubt about the chances of the ADC to counter the ruling party?
Well, I don't think Caleb Mutwang's cross carpet comes as a surprise to anyone. He had telegraphed the fact that he was going to leave for quite some time now, so that doesn't come as a surprise. Of course, it's another blow to the PDP that their ranks are being decimated. It also goes to lend credence to the fear that we are drifting towards a one-party state. However, to counter that, there was the news that Peter Obi declared for ADC. And so, in spite of the fact that Atiku is there, Amechi is there, and some other heavyweights are there, the fact that Peter Obi has solidly dropped in the ADC is telling for the fact that APC is going to face a major fight in 2027. For one thing, apart from President Buhari's 12 million voters that he carried with him to every election, I think Mr. Peter Obi is the next person that we can say has an organic following that sprouted organically of its own making, and he's carrying all that to the ADC, which changes the fortunes of that party immediately, as long as they can maintain their unity and they can be democratic and make sure that there's no imposition, and they keep all interested parties under the umbrella and they all support each other. ADC should be able to be a formidable contender. Nonetheless, the question you ask is, with all these defections to the APC, are people just feathering their own nests, which politicians are known to do, or is it that the APC juggernaut just has that kind of a magnetism that it is just bulldozing everything out of its path and pulling in everything it can, possibly? Well, clearly the stakes are very high for 2027, extremely high. And at this point in time, realignments are occurring at every front. You look at the war of words that's going on in Oyo State between Governor Makinde, Ayo Fayose, Governor Wike, ex-Governor Wike, on the one hand, that's further creating turmoil in the PDP, and it's giving more credence to the fact that PDP may not even have a candidate come 2027, not let alone being a credible opposition the way things are going. A court has ruled that INEC itself has not recognized the candidates that came out of the Ibadan Convention. A court has said something to the effect that it doesn't recognize them, INEC doesn't recognize them. So the PDP is in major disarray, and I'm not sure that there's enough time for it to put its house in order before the 2027 elections. Bottom line is, for democracy to thrive, you've got to have an active opposition. It's not the very best when we see the opposition not being cohesive, being very weak, and being on the ropes to some extent. They won't be able to give a major challenge. But let's keep our eyes on the ADC and let's see what happens.
Let's see what happens. I'm going to try to kill two stones with a bird. I was going to say, no, kill two birds with a stone. Mr. Akintobi, take a look at the front page of the Vanguard newspaper and just reiterate the point you made earlier on, and which we've spoken about. The new dawn, as they say, the NRS on the front page of a Vanguard newspaper. It's an advertorial that is big and bold there, saying that, you know what, the NRS is now what you'll be dealing with, no more the FIRS, on the front page of Vanguard newspaper. If we can pull that up quickly. But my focus, yeah, there you have it. So, unveiling a new dawn in revenue administration. Nigeria Revenue Service is what we have now. You see the page flipping on the FIRS. So please get familiar with this, Nigerians. This is the new entity you'll be dealing with. But my attention now goes to the front page of New Telegraph, Mr. Akintobi. New Telegraph, there's a story there on the front page of a New Telegraph that speaks to 2026. Olukoya sees troublesome, strange year as Adeboye predicts economic relief, reversed Japa. So are these two sides of a coin? Or, I mean, what's your interpretation, Mr. Akintobi? Well,
the EFCC clearly has been very active this year. You see it ending the year with high-profile investigations of people like the former Attorney General Malami, and so it has been quite a chaotic year for the EFCC. It's been accused of political persecution, of actually, even for example, like the Malami investigation has been said is because he's identified with the opposition ADC. That's why he's been hounded. But when you look at some of the allegations against him and how weighty they are, and the fact that these emanated from the office of the Attorney General, things like paying lawyers a commission for recovering the Abacha loot.
So pardon me, Mr. Akintobi, apologies. Yes. So this story, you know, is from pastors Olukoya. It's
yes.
for 2026. Olukoya.
Olukoya.
Usual countdown predictions or services and New Year services. Olukoya sees a troublesome, strange year. Adeboye predicts, Adeboye predicts economic relief and reversed Japa. So I'm asking these are two sides of the coin.
I've generally given short shrift to these kind of prophecies. I prefer to be grounded in reality, and I'm more of a person who deals with logic and substantive things I can smell, touch, and feel. I don't buy too much into prophecies. I like economic numbers. I'd rather listen to an economist telling me why we will reduce Japa next year and why our economic indices will be up than for a man of God to say God spoke to him overnight and told him this would happen. I think when you are talking of national things, issues of national significance, that we shouldn't leave them to either speculation or even if it's not speculation, even if it's grounded in religious reality. First of all, the fact that so many of us are different religions anyway. So if the Christian pastors are saying this is what they believe will happen next year, how about those who are non-Christian, does what they believe applies to them? And then also, a lot of our prophecies have been discredited over the years. I mean, even just in the news in the last few days, there's been one apostle or one primate or one pastor somewhere who predicted something and it didn't come to pass. So there's quite a credibility issue with those prophecies. But I'd rather move forward based on reality. Yes, I hope we can reverse Japa, but what are we doing substantively to reduce it? What are we doing to encourage our youth to stay in Nigeria? What have we done to empower them? What have we done to create employment opportunities for them? What are the hard facts, not abstract? I believe, I'm not saying prophecies don't come true. I'm not saying they are not true. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not possible. But I think from a government perspective, we should be dealing with statistics and proper economic reality.
Well, there you go, Mr. Akintobi. Thank you very much for your time walking through.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
As we said,
Happy
we love
New Year, Nigeria.
Happy New Year to you. We love 2026 already. It rained yesterday. It's raining today. So, Mr. Akintobi, let's have a fruitful year ahead. We'll be speaking with Mr. Akintobi on the program as we walk through all of the front pages. Thank you, and do have a great day, sir.
Wish you the same. Thank you.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, the governor of Plateau State has resigned from the PDP, adds to the long list of governors that we've seen leave the PDP in the space of just 1 year. But how is the People's Democratic Party receiving all of this? We're joined by the National Publicity Secretary of the party in a moment. Stay with us, we'll be right back.
Welcome back. It's still the morning brief on Channels Television. It's the second day of the year, and we're off to a bright start. Let's talk politics now as we welcome the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party, Mr. Imi Ememobong, who joins us virtually on the program. Mr. Ememobong, good morning and Happy New Year to you. Good morning. Happy New Year to all of you. And so the last time we had you on the show, we were talking about the defection, I believe, of the River State Governor to the All Progressives Congress. We've had another defection from your party since then, the Governor of Taraba State. And today we're talking yet another. Governor Caleb Mutfwang has announced his resignation, and he has thanked your party for the opportunity given to him, but citing recent crisis within the party, he's had to exit. How's the party processing this?
Well, as usual, nobody is happy to lose anybody, especially politics being a game of numbers. But when reality comes through and people take the decision that the Constitution and the law empowers them to take, then you have nothing. But, you know, there are usually two methods of balancing things or looking at things. You're either going to look at it legally or morally. So while it is legally permissible to do so, it speaks to the morality of the people who also are taking the decision. But looking at it frontally, the party is not happy about the state of affairs, which is why the Turaki-led administration is doing all within its power. We've been having meetings with people, but you know, it's about what you see, and I can't control what a person sees. What the person sees may be very far from what reality would be, the ability, the faith of the person to walk through a process. There are people who are fair weather friends. And so when you come to that point where people say, look, I can no longer go with you, what do? We are building a Gideon's army, if you remember. It's not about the numbers eventually, it will be about the people who believe, which is why it's a rebirth process for us. And for those who believe that a rebirth can happen, this party was built by few people, and many people eventually became beneficiaries of what few people built. And if we even go to the APC, and you remember that the AD, which is where the APC came from originally, was down to one governor, Bola Tinubu alone, after 2003 elections. But that did not stop them from rebuilding. So we have a history in our country where an opposition party has rebuilt from one governor. And I can tell you, like when I said before, I said when the PDP started in 1998, there was no governor, no senator. The people came around and made the governors and the senators. So if the people made by the party have left, then what we are doing now is to get back to those people who have been making and say to them, look, we're rebuilding this party. We want a rebound, we want a rebirth, and we want a retake.
Well, Mr. Momoa, it's a tough place to be for the PDP right now, losing 8 governors in the space of 1 year. That is some record, right? And at this rate, it's been said that if we go at this rate, by half this year, the PDP will not have any governor anymore, because if you had lost 8 in 1 year, in 6 months, going by that data, you can just lose the remaining 4 or thereabouts. So I understand how you're processing this. You know, there's the moral angle and the legal angle as well. But I want you to speak to those who have left, right? What is, because this is a party that you fought against. I'm talking about the APC, and you continue to fight against, saying, well, Nigerians deserve better. So what do you think that these governors see in that same APC, which the PDP has consistently said is not the best for Nigeria? What do they see in the APC?
Kelly, it's the emergence or re-emergence or the coming to the fore of the fact that we're playing politics without principles. Because if you go back to the campaign speeches of the people who are defecting today in 2023, you would hear how much of the bad things they said about the APC. So the question for them is, what has changed between then and now? Is it just a matter of convenience and comfort? And you know that the true test of a person of principle is not at times of convenience. It is in times of inconvenience and great contradictions. That is when people are able to stand true to their values and to rise above, which is why we are saying, okay, look at, for example, this mass drift affects governance critically. Like now, the president unilaterally sat and approved a waiver, wrote off the indebtedness that NMPC was supposed to bring to the federation account. Now that almost all the governors are there with them, it's impossible for the governors to invoke the original jurisdiction of the Supreme Court to question that the president, as the head of the federal government, cannot unilaterally sit and wipe off monies owed to the federation, because the federation is made up of the local government, the states, and the federation, and the federal government. So this affects. I mean, look at even the commencement of the tax laws. It's going to affect things in a way and manner that will negatively affect the movement of democracy and does not help with democratization and the consolidation, therefore. So the question for them, when they will be going for campaigns, is the fact that we would simply put their 2023 campaign against their 2027 campaign, because most of them are saying, look, we need a stable platform to go for elections. We acknowledge the fact that there are problems in the PDP, and we're not being irresponsible about that. But we are saying to them that the problems in the PDP were caused by human beings, and they were leaders of the party at the time when these problems were there. So when you're pointing accusing fingers at the PDP, you're simply having four fingers pointing back at you to say, what did you do when this crisis was there? Because human beings created the crisis. And if you know how powerful the Governors Forum, though not an organ of the party, is, you will know that these are the people. So when they say that there's problem in the party, they're simply saying they're also the problem. And we know that they're also exporting this problem to wherever they are going to. So it's a matter of convenience. It's a core morality issue which speaks to the capacity of these people to hold on to values. Again, in 2023, how many of these people would have received a ticket from the APC? How many of them would have been touched with a 10-foot pole? When you go back to how they emerged, the struggles, this is a party that stood by them irrespective of their personal crisis. Some of them had personal crises. Some of them had to defend their certificates in the courts with senior advocates of Nigeria. Some of them had to defend their age declaration in court. But the party stood firm. So the same party that stood firm with you when you had cancer is the party you're running away from that now has pneumonia, which is treatable. But this party stood through, and despite the pressures for some of them, there were court judgments to change them, the party stood firm. And at the end, they obtained the tickets of the party and ran. The painful thing for us is that these people forget that the certificate of return that they carry, after their name, it carries the People's Democratic Party. So in good conscience, when they look at that certificate of return, which they should be looking at, because it is the mandate, their faces were not on the ballot. It was the logo of the party that was on the ballot.
So, and Mr. Momomo, do you think that they made grave mistakes, these governors, 8 of them?
Absolutely, and I'm sure that in 2027, when the results come, they will have regrets as a permanent reminder to the fact that principle is good for people to hold on to.
Mr. Memobong, I think the bigger question now is how well the party will stand in the most important hour, and that's the hour ahead of the 2027 general elections. As it is, INEC has refused to recognize the Turaki-led faction of the PDP. So the bigger question is, how will your party then present a presidential candidate ahead of the 2027 general elections, and indeed other candidates at the governorship level, at the National Assembly level?
Now, we're in court at the Court of Appeal, and we're expecting that in Q1, between January and February, that matter should be dispensed with, because the judiciary also understands the implication and importance of this. We've also filed motions for accelerated hearing, and so that should put paid to that. If we are done in the Court of Appeal, then heading to the Supreme Court, I can assure Nigerians that the People's Democratic Party will file candidates. For what happened in Ekiti, we're also taking legal steps to ensure that the candidate of the party is recognized, because INEC monitored those processes. INEC has a report on those processes. INEC knows who the candidate in Ekiti is. They're only hiding under the fact that, oh, because we're in court and they cannot have the candidate being transmitted by a letter with the national chairman and secretary signing. And we don't have issues with that, but we're approaching the courts to ensure that the candidates in Ekiti and Osun will stand. The assurance to Nigerians is the fact that we are passing through a rebirth process. And this rebirth process is painful, but we are rebuilding along the lines of value. Because in the process of our growth from 1998 till now, a lot of the people who came through, we must also acknowledge the fact that imposition and anti-democratic practices had taken root within our internal democratic processes, which have landed us. And incidentally, the beneficiaries of this wrong are the people who are pointing the fingers today. And which is why our administration is looking inwards to say, can we ensure that the will and voices of the people within the party will be heard? And that is what we are working on, to say that never again would imposition happen. Because if the processes that birthed candidates were processes that had the people speaking their voices, the quantitative people, not just the qualitative people. Because what has happened now is the exit of the qualitative voices, while the quantitative voices are still around. But now we're ensuring that there is a clear balance between the qualitative voice and the quantitative voice, where the voice of an ordinary member of a party would also be heard, while the voice of a governor, senator, House of Reps member is also heard, so that people will have that belonging. After all, our party is the People's Democratic Party, which is why we are rebuilding along the lines of getting back to the people. That is why you see the widespread consultation, getting back to rally the base of the party to prepare, because when the judgment comes, we must be prepared to go to the polls to present candidates that are not just credible, but candidates that will win elections again.
And will that candidate perhaps be the Oyo State governor in 2027?
The Oyo State governor has not, I saw the interview where he said he is ably qualified to be president. He has stated his position. When it is time for presidential nominations, people will come up and declare their interest. If he declares his interest, like he said, he's qualified, the party will look at it. Many people, there are consultations. Many people have been speaking to the party about their interest in running in 2027. But what we need now is to first build a party, build a platform, because you cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. Every presidential ambition must stand on a solid base of a united party, the unification of the party, the casting of the platform, and which is why you know that even in building, you spend a lot of time to make sure that the substructure is solid so that it can carry the superstructure. A party that must produce the next president, not just producing president, because for me, this election is not just about producing a president, producing governors. No, it is about democratic values that at this point of our democratic existence, democratic values should become normative. It should not be imposed. It should become normative that people will see and naturally be drawn to democratic values. And so that is where we are building. So we are spending a lot of time to ensure that we set the substructure strong enough, capable of carrying not just electoral victory, but delivering economic benefit to the people of this country.
All right, Mr. Momoh, I want you rather to help us understand the organogram of PDP as it is right now. And I'm talking about the different factions within it. Because if you check the INEC website, for example, you see the national chairman, still Ambassador Elia Omar Damagum, the national secretary is Senator Samuel Anyawu, and it goes all the way. So help us understand, because we have the FCT Minister Wike's side that has the Abdurrahman Mohammed as chairman. We have your side that has Turaki as the chairman. There's also Umar Damagum somewhere. I mean, I don't know whose side he's on, maybe your side or right in the middle. So please, for the sake of clarity and for Nigerians who are trying to understand what this animal is, help us understand the organogram on both sides.
All right, clearly, you know, there are facts and there are the operation of law. So in fact, as we speak, the party machinery, all the organs of the party, even the administration of the party responds to the Turaki-led administration. But in law, why the Umar Damagum name is still on board on the INEC portal is because INEC says there is a court judgment that restrains them from accepting the outcome of the Ibadan Convention, and we don't have issues with that. And that's part of the reasons we are in the Court of Appeal. But in fact, in reality, and there are facts in existence need not be proven. In reality, the administration of the party is under Turaki SAN. Now, you recall that people, if you backtrack to how all of this started, was that there was a valid meeting of the NWC that suspended Anyanwu, Ajibade, and the National Organizing Secretary. And they now purportedly thereafter start to suspend the other people. And the case in SDP has shown that it is not the business of INEC to determine who the leader of a party should be. And so what INEC is saying, what that judgment says is that whoever the party, that the internal affairs of the party remains non-justiciable to the court. But where are we now? We are where the Court of Appeal judgment would determine whether the Federal High Court in Omotosho's case or in the Omotosho judgment or in Laifu had the jurisdiction to have, because they said they were in Omotosho's case, he made judgments and pronouncements on INEC, but the brunt was on PDP, which eventually still had jurisdiction on matters that the Supreme Court has said are non-justiciable. Now, so when you come to that fact, you see that the party, as we speak, in its operationalization, daily operationalization, is clearly under the leadership of Turaki SAN. Damagum had handed over with his entire NWC intact, had come to hand over to Turaki SAN, and the pictures are there. So there, in fact, in real life, in reality, there is no argument as to who is in control of the PDP, who the state chairman respond to, who the BOT speaks with, who the National Assembly caucus interacts with, who the Governors Forum interacts with. I mean, people can have a committee of friends, and in any case, the convention had expelled us. But I mean, they still, assuming they're not even considering that they were not expelled, they have the right. I can have Inyemabong and friends in the PDP, within the PDP, and we can hold our opinion, but that opinion cannot in reality override what is objective. I mean, the concept of intersubjectivity is what people are trying to bring to play, where a few group of people can just sit and say, look, this is what we think, and we need to foist it on the generality of the people. Democracy, whether internal or external, is a game of numbers, and clearly the numbers here stand with Turaki SAN.
Beyond the numbers now, let's look at the structure. We see you, we interact with you as the publicity secretary at the national level of the party, but I doubt that we've been seeing a voice as strong from the weaker group of the PDP, also speaking, issuing statements, speaking to the ruling party on matters of policy, for instance, the tax reforms. The national secretariat of the party, which group of the party is in control of the national secretariat in the Federal Capital Territory, following the resignation of 8 governors from the party and their exit to the APC, who is now in charge of the structures of the PDP and the secretariat of the PDP in those states of the federation. So which group should Nigerians be doing business with in terms of administrative relations with the PDP in these states and by extension at the national level?
Clearly, and that's a litmus test to show, because the duty of an opposition is to provide alternative to government, is to hold government to account, is to align with the people. And so when you use that litmus test, you can clearly see where the division lies. The people on the other end, assuming they're not considering that they were a faction, the people on the other end cannot, and we dare them issue a single statement against the president, because they have said that it is the agreement to support the president for 2027. And that becomes the sole reason for the entire crisis in the party, because people think that, look, we have made a promise to the president to hold PDP. Whatever that holding means, I do not understand. So that becomes the test, that becomes the defining line, what we are doing as a party. And so anyone who wants to relate with PDP as an opposition party clearly knows that it's the Turaki SAN group, that the main body of the PDP, the Turaki, led by Turaki, that they would deal with. But if you want an appendage, a PDP that is an appendage of the APC, then you're free to go there. But immediately you're looking at the execution of what a political party should do, hold government to account. We have issued countless statements holding government to account, and we'll continue to do so. In the New Year message we released yesterday, we said we will continue to speak truth to power. We have offered alternatives on various bases. We have also criticized the administration, albeit very constructively. We're not going to play the type of opposition the APC played in 2013 to 2015, because we need this country. It's not about an election. It's about owning the country. It's about, at the end of the day, not just winning the election, but winning the hearts and minds of people, because the polarization that comes immediately after every election, they must be healing after that. But the division, it depends on how deep the cut was during elections that will determine how fast the injury can go, which is why we are being very civil about the way we are approaching this. But if it is to hold government to account, you can clearly see that Turaki-led administration and the entire organs of the party have said to you, state chairmen, all of them, when we had a function, 31 of them were there. Some sent excuses because they couldn't make it. When we had that function, you saw that the National Assembly caucus, Abba Moro, and the caucus in the House of Representatives were with us. When we had that function, you saw former governors, former ministers forum. You saw the Board of Trustees as legitimately constituted responding. So the entire administration, both the staff of the party, are under the leadership of Turaki SAN. So when it has to do, remember that the administration and the administrative headquarters are two different things. The soul of the party and the carcass is there. When it has to do with the secretariat of the party, which they please has arbitrarily put under lock and key, we are still in court about that. But the fact that, I mean, a political party like a church is about the souls of people, because that's why the Bible says where 2 or 3 are gathered. But if 2 or 3 are gathered within a place called a church, where 2 or 3 are gathered within a place, any place, even outside, the church is formed. So where the soul of the party is, that there the party is. And as we speak today, that soul of the party is being administered, controlled, and delivered by the Turaki KSM.
All right. Quite a number of things to touch on. I remember your trajectory as commissioner in Akwa Ibom State. Your governor, your principal then, defected to the APC, but you stayed behind. I'm really curious to know what you were offered and why you chose to stay behind in that sense. But more importantly, let's talk national issues now. Maybe you give us that scoop sometime later. Now, the question is, do Nigerians really need the PDP? I bet you've seen President Bola Tinubu's New Year's message to Nigeria, where he spoke about 2025. In fact, for the president, he says that 2026 marks the beginning of a more robust phase of economic growth. And this is part of what he said about 2025, that they hit a lot of the targets they set economically. Inflation is now below 15%. They set a target of 15%. They even project economic growth more than what we had in the previous year. So for a lot of people, they will see the statement by the APC and say, maybe we should stay in this bus that will take us to promised land. Why do we need to jump bus to the PDP, which is not even sure where it is going? So what's the need for the PDP really, Mr. Mamu?
Well, I do think that it's good to be optimistic, but when you're speaking about the economy and you begin to pull up data, you should also tell us the sources of those data so that we could be able to argue with them about the data.
Right. If it's the inflation figures, I mean, the MBS releases that consistently, and the last
but if you go back to, I'm glad you mentioned the MBS. So if you go back to their Q3, you check Q1 to Q3. I don't know if they've released their Q4 yet. If you go back to Q1 to Q3, you see that even at Q3, the inflation rate was still between 18 and 20-something%. And again, when you look at that and you compare with reality, I mean, data, if you flog data well, it would look like, if you panel beat it, is amorphous. So if you hit it properly, it would look like what you want it to look like. Now, so the question on the lips of Nigerians would be, are Nigerians feeling the data? I mean, data would be data, but real life economics would be how much. So, for example, how much was a bag of Gary in 2015 before the APC took over? How much is it now? And you can calculate. How much was the exchange rate, dollar to naira, in 2015? Because what this administration tries to do is very seriously trying to delineate itself, to exorcise itself from the APC administration of the last 8 years. No, they will not. We will take them as a collective. When we are having this discussion, we're talking about the 16 years of PDP, we'll talk about the many years of the APC. So we would hold them. They are inextricably joined in a marriage, a political marriage that we'll have to discuss. Because you can't tell us, oh, we took over an economy that was almost dead. Almost dead, but you promoted it. Almost dead. You promoted it in the first term. You saw Nigerians were shouting. You went against the current president was junketing state to state to ensure that even where people were rejecting APC, he made sure that he used his political strategy and stuff to ensure that people won. So we are going to hold all of them to account. So last year didn't look too good. But even as an opposition party, we are hoping that this year looks better. I mean, we are not hoping, we are not like what APC did in 2013. We are hoping that the country gets better so that we can have better politics. We are not hoping things to get bad so that we can talk down on them, no. So, but if it's for last year you would recall that, okay, I mean, look, I remember that I think your television or others went to the market to show people who had issues with, who were complaining about the prices of goods in the market. Yes, the APC is saying the price of rice has reduced between last year and this year. But what was it before you took over? It's critical about that. It's critical that we look at it. So there's no way the economy will be looking good when insecurity is high. People cannot go to the farms. The places where people used to farm now, they have to negotiate with bandits before they can have access to. Then it means food is going to be an issue. And you know that immediately inflation hits food, then everyone is having an issue with it. So what are we saying to those issues? Some of you live in Lagos and Abuja. If you look at Lagos and Abuja, look at the rents in Lagos and Abuja and tell me that the people who live in those places have felt good. How much money is coming to them and how much are they spending? At the end of the day, by close of business day before yesterday, what was the balance on the account? So the statistics of economics used by government can look good. That is very high optimism. But what we are saying to the government is we need to listen to the people. The people said, look, the tax you're bringing, we don't even have the law that you started implementing yesterday. We don't have it. So how do you want us to go about it? And about laws, when it needs compliance, trust is a critical element. And remember that representative democracy draws from the fact that we feel that the people in the parliament are our direct representatives. So when they speak for us. So the accumulation of the entire legislature becomes the accumulation and the aggregation of the individual position of Nigerians on a matter. So if the parliament did not input even an adjective in it and you input it, it becomes wrong, and that alone makes that law invalid, because we want to be sure and certain that the laws that we're obeying are not executive orders. The executive orders have their limitations, and so if the executive wanted to impute things, then they should not have taken it to the parliament. But so those are the issues that we hope that the federal government in this new year would listen more to people, will not politicize the economy. I mean, we've come to a point where we must know that the survival of people matters a great deal.
Well, I believe we have time to get one more in before we let you go, Mr. Memobong. You talked about the challenges and you questioned the figures, but Nigerians can recall very vividly that in 2015, the rate of disillusionment was just as high at the time, and Nigerians were ready to go for any other option except the People's Democratic Party at the time. But talk to us about 2027 and what the chances would be, however briefly you can now, for the People's Democratic Party, especially against the backdrop of the party's dwindling fortunes. By our count now, you have just about 3 or 4 governors left within the party. So will there be a form of an alliance, perhaps with another party, given the current realities of the numbers?
No, clearly, again, I've tried to make a distinction between the qualitative members of the party and the quantitative. And when you look at it, the fact that, for example, in the last election, we didn't have a governor in Plateau State, but we won Plateau. There were states where we didn't have governors, but we won at the presidential election and we took over government from them. And so that's what we are saying, that the people who make this happen are the people we are heading back to now. Now, so if we didn't have a governor in Plateau and we took over Plateau, you understand? And today the governor we took over government from another party to give him is now going back to the place where we fought to get government from. So the question is, where are the people? We are getting back to the people. We are rallying the people. Yes, we are losing qualitative members, but we are not losing quantitative members. The numbers are still there because these numbers made these people, and provided these numbers are still there, will make other people. I mean, it's happened before. We've won incumbents in several states before. We have won elections in places where PDP was not in government at that point. And take note, those states, the governors may be in APC today, but that doesn't make the state APC state, because as we speak, the last election, you become an APC enclave or a PDP enclave 3 elections. As at the last election, those states were PDP. So whether the governor of Plateau has left, whether the governor of Kwara has left, whether the governor of Delta has left, the issue is their states are still PDP states, because in the last contest, that determines where the people stand, the people stood with PDP. It will take the next contest in 2027 for the people to determine, which is why the most critical asset in any election is the people. And that is why we are heading back to the people. So I can assure, whether there will be alliances in the future, I do know that in the circumstance where electoral or authoritarianism looks like the reality, and institutional uncertainty, which is the key element of every election, looks very shaky, the entire opposition must come to an understanding to be able to deal with what we are facing. When we get to that point, those discussions will flow. But I can assure you that as for the PDP is going to rebound very strong. The PDP is going to provide an excellent opposition, an alternative to the federal government, and will also lead the opposition parties to sit and think together, because we have a common adversary, we have a common opposition at that point, and therefore we must come together, which is why you'd see that we don't trade tackles with any other opposition party. No, that's not what. So we must not be divided amongst ourselves.
But, Mr.
If we all agree, all agree that what we're having is not good enough, then we must think about.
We have to anchor now. But the ADC has already taken that spot. Mr. Peter Obi is in the ADC right now. We have Atiku Abubakar. So really, what more is maybe the PDP should also just move into the ADC and form a coalition.
No. I mean, what is happening within the ranks of the opposition, when you look at the opposition as a generic, where all of us are, is good, because we are having an opposition to what the central ruling party is doing.
So the PDP will never join the ADC? Is that what you're saying? The PDP will never join the ADC?
No, the PDP is a distinct solid. In fact, you do know that anyone who aligns with the PDP has a lot of hope and focus.
But will the PDP merge with the ADC?
To form a coalition?
I think that.
Will the PDP merge with the ADC?
The period for merger is over. So, but I'm telling you that for a fact, all the leaders of opposition have been talking to themselves and talking with themselves. And when the period for that discussion, matures, when we get to the point where it is ripe enough to have that discussion of, I mean, people can take nominations from whatever party, but at the end of the day, people must sit down to say, what, in terms of reality check, who can beat the incumbent? And at that point, I can tell you that the PDP will be up and very strong in that discussion. All
right. We wonder if your comments mean surprises ahead of 2027. But we're waiting to find out. Thank you very much, Mr. Ememobong, the National Publicity Secretary of the People's Democratic Party. Thank you for your time on the program.
Thank you very much.
When we return from this break, there's more politics to talk about, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
It's a fast beat, unpredictable and full of surprises. The unforgettable moments, unprecedented passion. The victories and defeats in the world of sports makes it engaging. Fasten your seatbelts as we take you through every update in the news and on our shows. We define the moments of true sports. Join us.
Well, yes, we ended that conversation by speaking to what's playing out in the ADC, the African Democratic Congress. ADC, Mr. Peter Obi just joined the party hours before 2026. So there's a lot of activity going on. But then yesterday, a statement came up from someone saying, well, we don't know what's going on. We're not aligned with it. And this is someone claiming to be the chairman of the ADC. And it just brings to bear the classic events that play out in Nigerian political parties. I mean, the PDP has factions, the Labour Party, the same. I think the APC is only immune to that because it is in power. But the ADC, which sounds like the APC, but it's the ADC, is also experiencing that. But just how real is this. We're joined on the program, well, originally we had invited Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe, who declared himself as chairman of the ADC and has released a statement against recent events. But apparently he has sent someone to represent him. Originally he was meant to join us. So we have Mr. Abimiko Monday, who is now going to be speaking for Mr. Gombe. He's an essay on strategic communication to Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe. Joins us virtually. Mr. Monday, good morning. Welcome to the program. All right. Please unmute Mr. Monday so we can get your response through, because we need to clarify a number of things that Mr. Gombe spoke about. But if you're able to unmute Mr. Monday, let me confirm, can you hear us now? Or at least, can we hear you? All right, we'll try to resolve that. Sometimes having to handle these things yourself can be quite tricky. But here's what we have. The African Democratic Congress's rank is swelling by the day, the latest being Mr. Peter Obi joining. But, you know, last year when the coalition came up and you had the existing leadership stepping down to allow Mr. David Mark lead and others, the governorship candidate of the ADC in Gombe State, that's the 2023 governorship candidate, former national deputy chairman of the ADC, Mr. Nafiu Bala, said, you know what, I am going to be the chairman of the party. So he tendered his resignation and declared himself as interim national chairman of the party. So don't forget that also during that time, we had Mr. Dumebi Kachiku, also of the ADC, standing against the coalition and the leadership change in the ADC. And now Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe is raising dust over the recent events in the ADC with Mr. Peter Obi joining. So we're trying to find out what exactly is, we'll call it local standi of Mr. Bala Gombe to be raising dust about what's playing out in the ADC. What is he relying on to raise that dust, to raise those issues and really just get the facts clear for Nigerians? So we'll try to get the connection with Mr. Monday. But Bukola, here we go again with the ADC.
Indeed, and I'm trying to look through the INEC website, you know, to find out who the recognized officials are. And of course, you know, I'm not surprised to find that following that launch of the new ADC that we saw last year, the authentic, well, if you like, because the other groups of the party would challenge this, but the national officers of the African Democratic Congress are represented here as former Senate President David Mark, National Chairman. National Secretary would be former Minister of Interior and former Governor of Osun State, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola. National Treasurer would be Mani Ibrahim Ahmad. National Financial Secretary, Akibu Dalhatu. And the National Legal Advisor here is Professor Sereme Osumbo. So those are the national officers of the party. You know, but it's a similar narrative of, you know, our political terrain, of a number of opposition parties where the leadership is contested. And more often than not, there is an emergence of contention when it seems as if the fortunes of the party are about to turn a corner. We could cite that of a court party in recent times. We could also talk about ADC following the launch and, you know, the hue and cry that came from the presidential candidate of the party in the 2023 election, Mr. Dumebi Kachiku. So what are the implications of this? Is this just hot air being blown by this group that is contending the leadership following the big launch and, of course, the joining of the party by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party? What are the issues in court? Those are the things that we should also try to understand of this Nafiu Bala Gombe-led group of the ADC. What are the things that they're holding on to, you know, as, items of authenticity that empowers them to indeed lay claim to the leadership of the party, and what are the implications for this for the 2027 general elections. So we hope that Mr. Monday, who is representing Mr. Gombe, would be able to explain those things to us on this segment on the program.
Well, we had hoped that he would say those things himself, reiterate what Mr. Gombe said. But let's just tell you some of the things that he said in his words. Now, that's Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe, who's claiming to be the authentic chairman of the ADC. He said that it has come to our attention that a certain Mr. Peter Obi was reportedly registered at a party zonal office in Enugu. The National Working Committee wishes to categorically state that this action does not align with the constitutional and stipulated procedures for membership registration into the African Democratic Congress. The ADC is a party built on the principles of order, discipline, and strict adherence to its constitution, and the process of registering with the ADC is clearly outlined as follows. So they say there's meant to be ward registration, there's documentation, issuance of membership card upon a successful registration at the ward level. So again, it's important to get the context right and understand what he is relying on to say that, well, this, as he called it, certain Mr. Peter Obi is only reportedly registered as a party zonal office in Enugu and not a proper member of the ADC. So we'll try to get that fixed, but that is where we are at with the ADC. We'll take a quick break now, and when we return, we have more for you on the show. Stay with us. All right, we have Mr. Bimiku Monday now on the show as the essay on strategic communications to Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe. Mr. Monday, good morning and a happy new year to you.
Good morning, Karode Kikiolu and the other anchor. Thank you.
That's Bukola.
For having me.
That's Bukola Koka. So, Mr. Monday.
Bukola Koka.
Right. So, speak to us. What exactly is going on? Where did Mr. Nafiu Bala Gombe come from all of a sudden, saying he's a national chairman and saying, well, Mr. Peter Obi is only reportedly registered as a member of the ADC? Did he really say that, or is it AI?
Okay, first of all, I am Dr. Bimiku Monday. I'm the essay on strategic communications to the National Party Chairman of the ADC. That's Nafiu Bala Gombe.
Well, the national chairman, according to INEC, is Senator David Mark, by the way.
That's INEC, but INEC doesn't determine who the leadership of a party is. They only recognize those that they feel deemed to recognize following possibly some of the laid down rules and regulations, or let me say procedures they have seen. Basically, let me swing into the issue as it were. Looking at the current imbroglio rocking the ADC, I've appeared, severally on different platforms to talk about this earlier last year, before the year wind up. So the issue here basically is that the David Mark-led leadership actually just jumped into the party through the former chairman, Ralph Nwosu, and hijacked the party. So if you're with me, the ADC is a setup, is a system. It has a constitution, it has a legal document that is binding on members, and then that guides their activities. Now, if you look at Article 9, Section 4 of the ADC Constitution, to be eligible to hold party position at the national or zonal office or level, you must be a member for at least 2 years. And such a member must not have made payments, financial membership his financial membership should not be less than 2 years period and up to date. So if you look at the way David Mark and Aregbesola and the rest came into the party, you know that their coming contravenes that aspect of the Constitution, which says that you must be a member for at least 2 years. So they just came in and boom, they were declared as leaders of the party, jettisoning other people who have been in the party, who have been in the leadership of the party, particularly Nephew Gombe. Now, even if they said that they have done an amendment of the Constitution according to Article 29 of the ADC Constitution will be done in a national congress, or national convention, where two-thirds majority of members are present, and they will vote, either way. So, you see, with all of this, you know that they just bought in and are claiming the leadership. So, regarding the issue of Peter Obi, I don't know if you're with me.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Okay, regarding the issue of Peter Obi joining the party, if you look at Article 8, subsection 1, 2, and 3 of the ADC Constitution, it also talks about how a person can join the party. You join at the electoral ward, not at the zonal office. And if there is a case of rejection at the electoral ward, you appeal to the local government. No, from there you can, if in the case where you do not have access to registration of the party, you also can approach the NEC, that is the National Executive Committee of the party. So which of these have they really done? Now it tells you that they jump through the fence or whichever means to the party, and they want to hijack the existing structure from the legitimate owners of the party.
Do you have evidence? Do you have evidence that they have not gone through that process? Because you're actually asking, which means you probably don't know.
I am not asking.
So do you have evidence that they didn't register at the electoral ward or the electoral level?
They didn't register at the electoral ward, sir.
Where did they register?
If you check the declaration, that Obi appeared and said he has defected and he has registered, it is in Enugu, not the electoral ward.
But Mr. Monday, do you have you got reports from Mr. Peter Obi's ward in Anambra State to confirm that indeed he hasn't officially defected or officially registered his membership of the ADC in the Anambra chapter?
Of course, the leadership of the ADC in Anambra, particularly in his ward, has confirmed to us that he did not approach them to register, except if they put in another parallel leadership there where they can have their way, and at their beck and call.
And you can provide us with that evidence?
You see, when you talk about providing with the evidence, it can only be maybe a phone call we will show you, or we'll get a document, possibly. I didn't know we are going to be presenting those evidences here, since I know that I'm not appearing before a law court. So I did not come with those things you are talking about. But as regards the call and whatever that we've had with the ward chairman, it showed clearly that there was no such approach by Mr. Peter Obi.
All right, we'll await you providing us with that.
But just before that, pardon me,
narration, yeah.
Who is the ward chairman you spoke to? Do you know his name?
The national chairman spoke to him directly.
Yeah, who was the person's name, the ward chairman that was spoken to? Do you remember?
Hello?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Mr. Chukuma.
Is that the full name? Chukuma who?
Chukuma, I think Azubike.
All right.
Mr. Chukuma Azubike. Okay, we'll do our own independent findings as well. But
okay,
I'd like to know a bit more about this Nephew Gombe-led executive of the ADC. and I'll put it in context. We know that the former leadership resigned voluntarily, and it was reported, and handed over to the new leadership, and we saw that big launch of the ADC that is now led by former Senate President David Mark. So tell us when congresses were held that saw the election of Nafiu Gombe and other executives of this ADC group.
Sorry, I also asked for evidences to show where you saw the agreement. The agreements you are referring to, that is one.
I didn't mention an agreement. I talked about a report of Mr. Ralph Nwosu voluntarily resigning.
And so can you provide? Can you also provide that report? That is on one side.
Monday, it is over the internet. They spoke themselves. All right. I'm sure you probably watched that.
Yeah.
And when they handed over to
to
Senator David Mark, so that's evidence for you. Thank you.
I'm still responding to that.
All right.
Now you are talking about the report of the stepping down of the leadership of Ralph Nwosu and giving way to the leadership of factional leadership of David Mark. Now the question is, when that happened, was Nafiu Gombe not a national ESCO of that party or of the party at that time? Bala Gombe has been the vice chairman Northeast as far as the party is concerned. And all those agreements were done, you know, he was not carried along. And at the same time, what you should be looking at is, by the constitution of this party, Article 9, as I've rightly mentioned earlier, which says that for you to be eligible to be or to hold a position at the national level, you should have been a member of the party for at least 2 years. And you should also be an up-to-date financial member of the party. So within the period that you're talking about, was it up to 2 years that leadership was given to the David Mark-led faction?
We acknowledge your point, Mr. Monday, but I'd like you to speak to when power was handed over to the Nafiu Gombe-led executive. What's the procedure, according to your constitution, for the election of a new national leadership for your party? Aren't there congresses that are supposed to be held and a convention that will see the election of new national chairman, vice chairman, treasurers, legal advisor? So help us understand when that event took place.
Now, the constitution also stipulates that in a case where you have such, let's say, handover of power where congresses did not hold or convention did not hold, the next officer can take leadership. For instance, one of the vice chairmen can step in acting capacity. So we are not saying that Gombe came into a convention. He stepped in acting capacity. So that should be done before you begin to transit power to another body through a national convention. So that is what the Constitution says. And they did not obey that aspect of the Constitution.
Right.
All their activities contravene the Constitution because of their desperation to hijack the party.
Okay. So you're saying that basically he announced himself as national chairman. That's what happened, actually. And
he is the acting national chairman, yes, as duly recognized, yes, but by state chairman and all other leadership strata of the ADC.
How many state chairmen recognize him?
The 36 state chairmen, of course.
Including the chairman of Enugu, ADC Enugu state.
Of course. You know, the fact remains that when this faction came in a bid for them to hold their grounds, what they did was to begin to bring in people and just name them as chairmen of state, ward, and and their local government. Well, that's what they did.
Well, Mr. Monday, we have to anchor now. But if you're saying that the whole 36 state chairmen recognize him, I mean, where are they? Even if they can't go to court, they will at least protest or issue statements. There's been none of that. There's been a lull. But on a final note, for the sake of full disclosure, because Mr. Nafi Balagombe was meant to join us, is there a reason why he could not join us and you are representing him instead?
Yeah, he is actually not in good health, so he is responding to treatment. So that's why he asked me to represent him as his aide on strategic communication.
And just in 5 seconds, Mr. Monday, before you go, is Mr. Dumebi Kachiku with you on your side, with the Nafi Gombe side?
You see, that he may be the one to come and explain, because, you know, when it comes to politics, the one thing that is permanent is interest.
All right.
So, yeah, so it is possible he chooses where he wants to be.
So even if he's not on the David Mark side, he's not with you either?
I am not saying so, but I'm only saying it would be better he responds to that.
All right. There's something you have to clear for us quickly.
Okay.
How was he able to release that statement? Our best wishes to him on his health. But did he release the statement in spite of the ill health, or was that done by someone?
As at the time he released the statement, his health has not gotten to the level where he cannot avail himself. So, are you with me?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So when, you know, because it got to a level where he may not be able to come himself. That's why he directed that I should represent him.
All right. We have to thank you for your time and wish him the very best. We've been speaking with Mr. Bimiko Monday, who's representing Mr. Nafi Balagombe.
Finally, sorry, before I go, sir.
Right.
5 seconds. Are you with me?
5 seconds, please. We have to anchor now.
Okay, 5 seconds. You know, the matter is, we still have a matter filed in the Federal High Court.
All right.
Restraining INEC from recognizing the David Mark-led faction on those grounds that you have mentioned.
All right.
Because their presence or their movement into the party is illegal.
All right.
Based on those sections of the constitutions I have quoted to you.
We have to run now, Mr. Bimiko Monday. We understand that, and that's a case we're also following in court. So we'll see how it plays out. But we have to thank you once again for your time on the program.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
We'll take a moment now, and when we return, we've had cases of very troubling fire incidents in Lagos. The recent one still leaves a very bad taste in the mouth, and a family of those concerned are still mourning, particularly because of the way and manner the building was constructed, perhaps access to the building and the eventual rescue procedure. It's a lot to speak to, particularly when it comes to building code. So what must we do to ensure that we have better laws to ensure that we adhere strictly to building codes? I will speak to that in a moment, so stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, and away from politics now to fire incidents that have marked this season, albeit in a very, very distressing manner. The recent one being one recorded in Ikotu Market, where 4 shops, according to reports, were razed by fire. And let's talk about this and see just how well, these incidents can be prevented in the future. And joining us on the program is Mr. Abiola Aderibigbe, a construction and engineering law expert who joins us virtually this morning on the program. Mr. Aderibigbe, good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Bukala and Kaide. Happy New Year to you both, and thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Happy New Year to you as well. Just when we were, yet to recover from the great Nigeria insurance fire that happened in Balogun Market in Lagos. There's yet another in Ikotu Market where 4 shops, according to reports, were razed by fire. Is this, how are you processing this? Is this a case of, coincidence or human error?
Well, Bukola, before I say anything, I wish to express my sincere condolences to everyone affected by these incidents. The families whom have lost homes, traders whose livelihoods have been affected, and communities that have been deeply impacted. These events affect real lives, and they must remain at the center of discussion about safety and any sort of reform. And to your question, it's a bit difficult and troubling to process, because what we've seen in Lagos in recent days, including the fire incident at Great Nigeria Insurance House on Lagos Island as well, around Christmas Eve. And of course, as you mentioned, the fire involving electronic shops in the Kontu area is deeply troubling. And we know that these are not isolated events. I mean, for example, I could also mention the Afreland fire that happened earlier in the year, or perhaps the FIRS fire that happened in Abuja on the 20th of December as well. The truth is that these reoccur way too many times for comfort.
Indeed. And I know you're trying to champion better construction practices, because if anything, we love erecting buildings in this part of the world. You just blink and you've seen a high rise and you begin to wonder, where would vehicles park, for example? How would emergency services get access to this place if there's a case of fire incident, right? And you look across border, it looks like nobody really cares. Just put that building there, let's collect rent and make good money. So is this a year we should start rethinking our building practices? What is fundamentally wrong? And can we really achieve that, seeing that all these buildings are up or almost done already?
That's a fantastic question, Kaide. And I believe this is a year to start rethinking just how we plan buildings, if there's a need for repurposing buildings, if there's a need for upgrading buildings, and the approach we take to doing so. Now, I want to be clear about something. These issues or these incidents are not really about putting or blaming any one individual, any one government or institution. But it's about, to the core of your question, Kaide, it's about understanding risk and preventing harm. And I believe that there are essentially 2 broad ways to approach matters like this. The first being the system of fire safety and preparedness, and then the second being what you alluded to, Kaide, a more systemic route, essentially looking at how these buildings are built, what spacing is like, how it works from an approval level, and what accurate town planning should be. Now, if I may add, I caught the episode on Boxing Day with Mrs. Farah Williams, a fellow of the Institute of Safety Professionals at ISPAN, and she spoke very compellingly about the need for trained fire wardens, properly placed fire extinguishers, fire marshals on every floor, clear safety rules, all those are safety plans, and those are all quite important and are key to preventing incidents like this. They're fundamental. However, when fires occur repeatedly in dense commercial environments like we have in Lagos, they are rarely the result of a single fault. More often, they are the outcome of a chain of issues that build up over time. So how buildings are designed, how they're constructed, and how they're used, what is stored in them, whether ventilation is adequate, and whether safety systems are properly inspected and maintained over the course of the lifetime of the building. So essentially, I believe, long story short, I believe this is the year definitely to address how these are erected, if there are corrections have been made. I know that Governor Sanwo-Olu ordered the buildings to be turned, not for a consume, but for the occurrence in GNI, to basically be turned down after the fire incident. But these have to be revisited, and we have to have a better, more strategic, more holistic planning towards putting buildings together, and that actually sits at the heart of my of the construction reform I'm advocating for, which is essentially a Nigerian Construction Act that unifies how things like this are supposed to be executed. And
during that conversation, I recall that she did also talk about facility management. I wonder how much of that is incorporated into the orientation of managing, these public buildings that particularly house commercial, structures. And so who should be taking responsibility, for that kind of orientation? Should we be calling out state governments for the lack or the need to have more public safety commissions that will incorporate codes and ethics of managing facilities to prevent fire or to ensure quicker response to managing fire incidents when they do occur?
So, Bukola, that's a very fantastic question. And what I will say to that is everyone bears responsibility. No one is excluded, from the person who develops the building to those who are inspecting that the building is up to snuff, up to code, to even the laws and the codes that we have ourselves. Now, the issue in Nigeria generally is we do have a national building code in Nigeria. We have standards on paper in Nigeria, but those national building codes are not by themselves binding law. They have to be essentially passed, descend down to domestic law for the states. And that is causing fragmentation between states on how it is implemented across Nigeria. So you have uneven implementation of the code. Now, if you were to ask me specifically, because I'm going to tell you, I do not think that the national building code does enough. The 2006 iteration, as revised in 2017, I don't think they do enough. I think that we need an all-encompassing federal law, unified law that deals with construction generally, parked in one legislative framework. And this is exactly what I'm advocating for. And in fact, what I'm pushing, the Nigerian Construction Act I'm pushing and advocating for is based on 5 co-equal pillars. One's got to do with contractor registration and grading, so to ensure that anybody who is developing, building, working on a building is competently qualified to do so. Unfortunately, in industry in Nigeria at the moment, anybody can come and say, I'm a developer, I'm a builder, right? It is not as strictly regulated or as enforced as it ought to be. So we need contractor grading and contractor registration. That's the first. The second is we need a conscious health and safety HSE arm towards whatever we are building, so that health and safety comes to the very fore right as you start building. In fact, even before you start building, you're already considering the health and safety implications and the environmental implications. And then thirdly, we have your typical anti-corruption and governance tranche. Fourthly, we've got a tranche to do with payments adjudication, which is just about, because cash flow is an issue generally as well within the building sector, how we deal with that. And then finally, we've got the 5th tranche, which has to deal with ensuring that if we're getting any experts coming in outside of the country to help build, that knowledge that you bring is also thought and flowed down to the Nigerian community. So that's essentially the 5 pillars that my Construction Act is based on. And I'm saying that if we've got that contractor grading, contractor registration arm of the pillar, the people that will undertake any building or any development in Nigeria will be people that we are satisfied are competently qualified to do so.
Well, it's a lot to deal with, and I think it's something that can be done. But, that happens usually before or during, and then there's the aftermath. So these fires, for example, there are those who strongly believe there's some hanky-panky at play. There's something untoward at play here. In fact, some of them would say, I can bet you someone probably put a fire to my store, or this is beyond electrical fault. So there's also the big part of investigation and really pinpointing what caused a fire. But too many times after these fires happen, they put the fires out, they leave the businesses and the families to rue their losses, both human and material losses. And that's all we hear, and we just move on to the next one. So I really just want to reiterate that we must strengthen our investigative process as well. Same way we're able to investigate what happened to this aircraft. How did it crash? we should be able to also pinpoint and say, oh, this is how this fire started. Is it arson? Is it an electrical fault? Is it a fault of whatever? I just wanted to put that out. But on a final note, just how optimistic are you that laws would actually sail through something like what you're planning? How optimistic are you that it will be taken on board by the National Assembly and it will be followed through with understanding that lawmaking in Nigeria is sometimes extreme sport?
You're not wrong. Sometimes it is. But what I'm going to say is I have to be positive, because the truth is there are too many lives lost with matters and issues like this. Since 1974, we've had over 671, according to the Building Collapsing Guild, we've had over 671 buildings collapse. We've lost over 1,600 lives. Every Nigerian life is valuable. I'm going to say this again. Every Nigerian life is valuable. We cannot continue to lose lives with fire incidents like this, random building collapses, when we as a nation could do better. So do I think it is easy to pass this through? No. But what keeps me optimistic, or what keeps me positive about it, is the fact that there is a need to do something about it. And that's what fuels me and keeps me motivated.
It looks like we have time for just one more. And, you know, just while you spoke, I was looking at those videos and I saw how some of those traders were throwing their goods, trying to salvage what was left of their goods through windows. And that speaks to a lack of safety exits and, you know, just how defective some of those constructions are. And in Lagos Island, where we'll be looking at it yet again on the screen, we can see how close the buildings are, you know, to each other. And that's the, you know, one significant trait, or if you like, attribute of some of the structures, predominantly in the Lagos Island area. So what should we be doing about your proposal beyond positivity? What should we be doing right now in terms of lobbying to get this through to the National Assembly and hopefully a domestication at the State Assembly level?
It's a fantastic question, Bukola, and thank you for asking. Firstly, I think sometimes in Nigeria we forget that we as a collective have a voice. We as a nation need to be speaking to our representatives, speaking to our governors, speaking to our reps, etc., to say that we're demanding safety at the forefront regarding building and construction. If the nation demands better, our politicians, our leaders, institutions who are in charge of safety, etc., will have to listen to us. First step is me being here with you guys, for which I'm extremely grateful, because I know this is going to echo around corridors and people will start to put two and two together, looking at how to approach, looking at how to get the message out there that it's time for change. Kayode, to your question earlier on, I fully believe 2026 is a time for change. Right. And I'm saying that this year is a year for no more fire incidents like this, no more building collapses. We as a nation can do better, and I'm looking forward to Nigeria doing better.
All right.
A fine place to anchor, and here's where we say thank you very much for coming on the program this morning, and we hope that beyond this, it will move beyond talk and we'll see action in the coming days. We really do not want to have this kind of conversation this time, 2026. Thank you very much, sir. We've been talking with Mr. Abiola Aderibigbe, construction and engineering law expert. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Bukola. Thank you, Kayode.
All right, just before we go, let's tell you that the hearing of a bail application, former Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, is set to begin in the nation's capital, Abuja. And there you see him. These are images just coming in, actually, from the court. You recall that Justice Emeka Nwite had ordered him, as a former AGF, his son, Abdulaziz Malami, and Bashir to be remanded in the Kuje Correctional Facility pending the hearing and determination of their bail application. That was last year. And then, of course, the case was adjourned to January the 2nd, which is today, for the hearing of the bail application.
So we'll bring you more updates on that on Channels Television, so stay on with us. There's more to come on Sunrise Daily, which is up next. Thank you for being there. I am Bukola Koka.
And I'm Kayode Okikulu. Have a fantastic day ahead. Goodbye.